There are some inconvenient facts that politically correct crowd hope the people of the South never find out. The left of center crowd are quick to associate the Confederate Battle Flag with racism and attempts to discriminate against black Southerners. But the truth is strangely different. The truth is something our enemies would hope that black and white Southerners never find out, and they have been very successful in keeping the truth away from us. Post-war, the Republican Party controlled the Congress. What was the first thing that the Republicans did when the South left the Congress, when the South seceded? Did they emancipate those slaves that were in their area of the Union, those northern states that still maintained slaves? No, they didn't. The first thing the Republicans did once they gained control of Congress was to pass the largest tariff in history. Their primary concern was money, not slavery. Prior to the South's secession from the Union, the North could not pass such high tariffs. For instance, 10 years prior to Southern secession, the North was only able to extract about $400,000 from Congress to use for internal improvements in the North. But 10 years after, from 1860 to 1870, the Northern-controlled Congress was able to extract over $1.2 million for use of Northern commerce, industry, and political elites. 10 years after that, 1870 to 1880, they were able to extract $8.1 million. Now, during the Constitutional Convention that drafted the original Constitution, the North insisted upon the infamous 3/5 rule. That is, the black man and woman and child only counted as 3/5 of a person in order to determine representation in Congress. Now, the purpose of this was to limit the South's political control or the South's political power in Congress and to make sure that the North maintained control of Congress. Post-war, this 3/5 rule became moot. There were no more slaves. From that point forward, every black woman, man, and child counted the same as a white man, woman, or child for the purpose of representation in Congress. So as a result, the South's political strength post-war would have increased, and the Republican control of their newly created federal empire would be placed in doubt. General Beauregard understood this, as well as other leaders of the former Confederate states. And Beauregard, as most people don't realize, was the designer of the original Confederate Battle Flag. Post-war, Beauregard and the businessmen of New Orleans formed the Unification Movement. This movement was to encourage mutual political efforts by black and white Southerners to recreate a viable Southern economy. They also advocated recognizing black Southerners' political and civil rights, and to encourage political efforts aimed at low taxes in order to stimulate and develop Southern economy. What was Beauregard's view of black voting rights? This is what he said. He said that the black Southerners are Southern born and with education and property requirements and qualifications, the same requirements that were held for whites at that time, that the black Southerners and the white Southerners could work together to form and ensure a prosperous South. Even during Reconstruction, another Southern Confederate general had this to say about black voting in the South. He said, quote, "I do not favor their disenfranchisement. I would sooner trust him," that is, black Southern voters, than the white scallywags and carpetbagger. End quote. This was General Nathan Bedford Forrest in 1872. The Republican Party, their war governors and crony capitalist allies, did not initiate an aggressive war against the South in order to allow the South to gain more political power. No, something had to be done. Reconstruction was the Republican solution. Republicans refused to allow Southern representatives to be seated in Congress. They divided the South into military districts and placed military generals over areas of the South. The Republicans created the Freedmen's Bureau, whose primary purpose was to use black Southerners as pawns in the Republican effort to maintain control of the newly created federal empire. Republican Congress replaced mutual efforts of black and white Southerners to work together in order to form a political union that would ensure a strong and viable Southern economy. They replaced that effort with bitter racial hatred. Using black Southern votes, the Republicans passed numerous new laws. For instance, they increased taxes on cotton that extorted $68 million from defenseless and cash-strapped Southerners, thereby assuring our impoverishment. They forced, at point of bloody bayonets, the acceptance of the 14th and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, an unconstitutional act in itself, but by now we should realize that the Constitution means nothing. Republican Congress forced Southerners to pay taxes for Union veterans' benefits while denying benefits to Confederate, black and white Confederate veterans. Southern leaders such as General Beauregard, who designed the Confederate Battle Flag, were willing to work with black Southerners to develop a sustainable and prosperous Southern economy. Power-hungry Republicans in post-war Congress created an atmosphere of racial distrust and hatred. This atmosphere allowed them, the Republicans, to maintain and expand their political control of their newly created federal empire. Once the Republican Party had accomplished its political goals, it then abandoned black Southerners in the 1880s. General Beauregard's Confederate flag did not create racial divide and racial mistrust. Justice demands that we honor that flag.
Every cultural and ethnic group in America today is encouraged to display pride in their heritage, except Southerners. Sadly, the heritage and rights of Southerners have been relegated to the trash heap of liberal PC society. Justice requires equality and fair play for the South. After all, Southern rights matter. We insist on justice for all Southerners who wore the gray, black or white, during the War for Southern Independence, and justice for their descendants. The Sons of Confederate Veterans is a non-political Southern heritage organization defending the good name of all honorable Southerners. Check out our website and join us in this noble endeavor.